So Xavier Rhodes just signed a 1-year, $3.2 million deal, only $1 million of which is guaranteed. So this is definitely a pretty good deal for the Colts' perspective and for Rhodes' perspective. I mean, Rhodes is getting another chance to prove himself. And for the Colts, you're basically paying nothing for a guy who at one point was a really good corner. I mean, not just really good, he's a former All-Pro. It's kind of the definition of a low risk, high reward type move. I mean, basically, you can go out and get him for a very low price, which, I mean, the Colts aren't going to really take a hit on this deal. And on the other side, if he's great, well, then hey, you just had a great season for basically for free. And, I do think Indianapolis is looking to compete this year, so I think it makes some sense. But let's get into what makes Xavier Rhodes Xavier Rhodes. And, the one thing that has to be mentioned is that he definitely did not play particularly well in 2019. If we're going to look at the PFF grade, which, listen, I know a lot of people aren't big fans of Pro Football Focus. I get it. It's not a perfect science by any means, but it can give you an idea of how well a player is playing. And for someone like Rhodes, I mean, his PFF grades were in 2016, he was at 73.8. 2017, he was at 72.4. Those are pretty good grades, but then it went down to 58.2, and then last year, 47.9. So a clear drop off if you look at that. Again, that's not the only thing you can look at. I've never been a numbers guy, so let's just get into the film study. We'll start off with a play like this, where this is going to be a cover one blitz, and that's going to be the route that Rhodes is going up against. Go route deep down the field. This is obviously a very good route against this type of coverage because, yes, there is a safety who's deep, but the safety has two sides of the field he has to keep an eye on, including, something maybe underneath. So he has to be aware of everything. He can't sell out to one side of the field unless he really sees that somebody is open. And so the idea is that, hey, in 2019, Rhodes doesn't have the speed he once did. So I'm going to just try to run around him or run by him, just use speed to my advantage, see if I can get open. And after the ball is snapped, when Daniel Jones has to make this decision, you can look and you can see that, okay, this could work out, right? Like, they're both basically adjacent with each other at this point. If this is a good throw, you'd expect the receiver could get some separation and make the play. However, Rhodes does a pretty good job of keeping pace and even getting his head turned around and trying to make that play. I mean, that was Sterling Shepard he was going up against. Not a scrub by any means, but Rhodes was able to play that one pretty well. And I think that that's where Rhodes actually can still be effective. I think Rhodes' strong suit at this point is just not having to cut. It seems like his footwork has been the biggest thing that's gone away over the years, and to be honest, that was never what made him great to begin with. So I do think that him being a little bit clunky with his footwork definitely has resulted in some struggles. And so for a route like that, it doesn't matter. I mean, you don't really require too much footwork. That's more just speed and getting your head turned around, which Rhodes was able to do. But for a play like this next one, footwork is going to matter, where it's the same coverage as last time, but this time that's the route that Rhodes is going to be going up against. This is Golden Tate running a quick route towards the sideline. That's what he's going to at least start off doing. And so Rhodes is going to look at this and he's going to say, okay, the second I see Golden Tate cut in, I'm going to run over in that direction. So Golden Tate, he's a great route runner, but when he does cut in, he has some separation. And part of this is just because, he faked as though he was maybe going a little bit further up, cuts without a warning, and now Rhodes is in a bit of trouble. So good piece of route running by Tate. This is what Tate does. Not really too surprising. But as I said, this is not actually the route that he's running. I said that this is what he's going to start off doing, and that is true. But he then is going to run deep towards the end zone, and this is a great situation for him because Rhodes is panicking at this point because he's already gotten beat. So now he's trying to cut in to make sure that he doesn't get beat even worse and try to be able to make this play. There still is a small chance that he can make this play. However, Golden Tate is then able to run up. He completely beats Rhodes, although as you see, there's the contact there. Personally, I don't know if I love that penalty because that was kind of more Tate just ran into Rhodes. It seems more like the reason that flag was thrown was simply just because, Tate clearly won his matchup, and so they were kind of giving him the advantage. But personally, I think that just, Tate ran into Rhodes, not the other way around. That's just my opinion. But at the same time, that doesn't exonerate Rhodes on that play. He got beat very badly and got bailed out by Tate running into him. Even though the flag was on Rhodes, it was deemed pass interference. At the same time, that could have been a touchdown if Tate just didn't run into Rhodes right there. So, Rhodes got a little bit lucky there, if anything. But that was just him getting beat by good route running. And good route running will absolutely work against Xavier Rhodes. It just will. Yes, this guy is a big guy. He still has speed. He doesn't have the footwork that he once did. And it really did show. And one thing that I also noticed is that, especially in the red zone, he wasn't getting his head turned around the way he usually does, and he definitely wasn't creating contact the way he usually does. This is a good example where it's going to be a one-on-one matchup, and that's the route he's going up against. This is something you do all the time. It's a pretty low-risk, high-reward type play. That's the idea behind it. And after the ball is snapped, you notice what's going on right here. So there's some separation. I mean, ideally for the Lions at this point, you want to throw this one a little bit further away from Rhodes. You want to throw it maybe closer towards the sideline, put it in a spot where either this is going to be a completion or it's going to just fall incomplete. You don't want to risk an interception right here. However, that's actually not what Stafford is going to do. Stafford's just going to fire it right in there. So if Rhodes gets his head turned around, this could not only be an interception, but this could potentially be 6 the other way because there's nobody really in the area who could make a tackle. However, Rhodes just never gets his head turned around, and that results in a touchdown. And, that's just the kind of thing where it's like, if he can get his head turned around quicker there, he's able to at least knock the ball away, probably get an interception. But since he had already gotten beat at the line, he was panicking to try to get back. Again, it's a risky thing to do. If you decide to turn your head around, then you could make the interception in a play like that. But if Stafford throws it over, well, then there's an even bigger window for Stafford to make that throw. So, you could argue either way. But Rhodes, I feel like, used to get his head turned around on plays like this. On that one, he certainly did not. And so I could nitpick that play all I want and say, oh, what a bad job. But quite frankly, there's one real reason that Rhodes has struggled, and it's because of his quickness or lack thereof. Like, on a play like this, it's going to be a one-on-one matchup right there on the top half of the screen, and then the route is just, again, pretty similar to last time, just a route just in the end zone, going to cut up towards the sideline, and again, Stafford's going to say, hey, it worked last time, I'll look there as well. And you see for Rhodes, he allows the Detroit Lions receiver to run to him. He's in a position where now, wherever he cuts, then Rhodes can try to keep pace with him. It makes some sense. But at the same time, the second he does cut, Rhodes just doesn't have that quickness to keep up and to be able to knock the ball away. And, Marvin Jones was able to beat him on that play. And that's, quite frankly, what Rhodes' biggest problem was just getting beat in general. He doesn't quite have the acceleration he once did. He's a bit of a, maybe a step slower in that regard. He doesn't quite have the speed he once did, although that's probably the thing that's deteriorated the least. And he definitely doesn't have the footwork he once did. And clearly it's getting in his own head too. I mean, I feel like I saw him get so frustrated throughout the course of 2019, increasingly more and more so. And I have to imagine part of that is just simply because he wasn't playing as well. And when you don't play as well, you start to get more frustrated, even if your team itself isn't doing that terrible. Because, I mean, listen, these guys have egos. I mean, everyone would. If you're playing in a sport, yes, you want your team to win, but you also want to be a part of your team winning and not having your team win in spite of you. But that being said, for the Colts, I do like this signing. I don't think he's like a number one corner at this point in his career. He's just not. But if you could just sort of have him be maybe a number 2 guy, probably a number 3 guy, or at least, swap out in between those spots, he can be somebody who can be effective. Again, it's a very low-risk signing. And also, he is still a very smart player. I mean, he worked, obviously, with Zimmer for all those years. He's a smart guy. He is a smart player. And so maybe he can sort of pass off some of his knowledge to some of the other Colts young defensive backs. That makes sense to me. I do like the signing. I don't think he's a great player anymore. I just don't. I don't think he's what he once was. But I'm also going to sit here and say I don't think he's an atrocious player. I think he's just sort of not really somebody who we should know the name of if he didn't have so much success earlier in his career, of course. So, Yeah, kind of interesting. I mean, it'll feel weird seeing him in a Colts uniform. I feel like there's a lot of that this season where it's like, oh yeah, that guy wearing that uniform doesn't look right. Rhodes will be one of those guys, I think, even though the uniforms are kind of similar, not exactly. That'll be a weird one. But yeah, what do you guys think of these signings? I'm always interested to hearing, what the general consensus is, because I try to not look too much at, I don't really go on social media, as you guys probably know. If you follow me, you don't see me post too often because I don't really like to look at other stuff. I don't like to look at other people's opinions because then I will base my own opinion off of their opinion to some degree, and I don't want to do that. So I try to not read too much. I will read a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I like to just watch the tape and then make my own opinions. So, it's always fun after I made a video to sort of look around and see, do people agree or disagree with me. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.